So flexion, as you may recall, when compared to extension, is a more evenly distributed movement throughout the spine. And that's going to sort of be the theme of today's exploration, is how we can relate this, this movement, the details of this movement we call flexion in the spine, to the yogic concept of Paschima Uttanasana. Right? Because the pose, Paschimottanasana, is named in a very interesting way. Paschimottanasana breaks down as Paschima Uttanasana. Now, Paschima, as most of us know, who have studied this stuff, means west. It means the back surface of the body. The idea being that if you're doing your traditional practices in the morning towards the rising sun, the front of your body is the east, Purva, right? In the Purvattanasana, this pose here exemplifies that. It's considered a counter pose to Paschimottanasana. The back surface of the body would be west. And it's one of those asana names that actually describes an experience more than it does a shape. Think about that. See? Uttanasana means an asana that gives an intense stretch. Paschima tells you where that intense stretch is located. So it's actually a description of an experience, as opposed to, say, Trikonasana says, well, this pose, the shape of it resembles a triangle, right? Or there's other poses that are just named after sages or warriors, right? And Virabhadrasana is named after Virabhadra, a warrior, and all that. But the Paschimottanasana actually tells you something about an experience. And how that may or may not be related to this movement of spinal flexion is something we want to look at. Before we get into some of the details, let's just see if there's any questions or comments. Aha! Your hand shot right up. And by the way, those of you whose names I don't know by heart, just say your name before you ask your question so I can learn your names better.
I'm Meg.
Meg. Okay, what's your question, Meg?
I'm curious about where the need to extend the spine came from. I saw that Iyengar was doing that, but there's nothing in Krishnamacharya's description that says, in fact, in the pictures, his spine is flexed.
Yeah, and his instructions are really gearing towards spinal flexion.
Right, so where did that come about?
And
what would be the benefit? Because having your head bent would create more stretch in the back of the body.
Wouldn't it?
Right, so I'm confused about why people think doing this is going to increase. I mean,
I was hoping for that question, because that would be a real question to ask, given how a lot of these instructions are rendered when teaching poses like this. Okay?
I have a question about the calves.
Yeah.
For this pose and a lot of poses, everyone talks about hamstrings.
Yeah.
And for me and a bunch of other students, I don't feel anything in my hamstrings, completely in my calves.
Ah.
So I'm just curious about that.
And are you allowing your knee to bend, or are you trying to keep your knee straight? Or
Either way.
Can you come up?
Yeah.
This is so cool. Okay, I mean, not cool that you have this problem, but I'm borrowing your blanket again. I might need it. Okay, so Chris is going to just kind of show us show us what you're talking about.
Okay. Well, if I fold forward,
right.
Anyway, it's completely in here, and if I drop my head, it's up here first.
Ah. Oh, well, that's a start, because all we need to do is connect the points in between, and he's got Paschimottanasana, right? So let me put this here. Now, just actively press your knees down into that blanket, okay? And now just kind of place your hands here, right? And kind of just breathe. Good. So you got your heels, the backs of your knees, and your sitting bones connected, right? Mm-hmm. Do you feel this in your calves yet?
Yep. And in my thighs.
Oh, where? The fronts of your thighs or the?
Here.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. All right. So what if you were to create a little more Internal rotation. Does that change what's going on anywhere?
My quads are really firing right now.
Okay, what about your calves?
My quads are taking up all of my attention.
Distraction is an effective strategy. Okay, so now, what if you were to let your sternum rise and let your chin drop? It's almost like a chin lock. There you go. Can you see how that also engages your lower belly a little bit? It's like all three bandhas kind of have to go together, right? So every time you exhale, okay, what I'd like you to do is kind of keep that arrangement and just come forward from here a little bit. This is different than what we did before, right? Now, is that getting in your calves? The quads are still screaming? There. Good. Let your hands wander forward here onto your shins. Good. Just let them rest there. There. Good. And now let the base of your skull release. There. So where are you experiencing that now?
In my hamstrings.
Oh my God, not your calves?
I don't know, my quads are really...
Okay, keep it going. Now, can you...
Oh, there's my calves.
There's your calves, right, as soon as we kind of extend it a little bit more. Okay, so this is a key area here for the nervous system. What I'd like you to do is, okay, just there. Pivot here at the base of your skull and then let your head drop. You know, just that movement. Nothing else, just that. There and there. Good. So that's it, just that little pivot. So inhale as you pivot up. Exhale as you release down. Good. Good. That's it. And inhale, pivot up, right at the base of the skull. Good. And exhale, release down. Good. Inhale, pivot up. Exhale, release down. Let it release. There you go. Good. And inhale, pivot up. There. And exhale, release down. Good. And can you get your toes? Excellent. Just drape them there. That's it. There. And release. Good. And just kind of breathe there. So, is any one place screaming at you more than any other place? Or
Right where your hand is.
so it wasn't my hand, it was actually that part of your body.
Yeah.
But it's not your calves.
Nope.
See, this entire network is completely connected, not just structurally, but nervous system-wise. So I find that the switching station, electrically speaking, at the base of the skull is very effective. If we create a little bit of release there, it's going to trigger a lengthening pretty much wherever you need it.
Wow.
So, there.
It's all where your hand is now.
Yeah. Well, this is okay because you can do something about that with your breathing. There. See how you're stretching my fingers apart as you inhale? Feel how, that's it. There's a width that goes on there. That's it. That's it. Good. There. Okay. How you doing?
I'm so hot.
Will someone open a window, please? I mean, the room is hot. But the traditional descriptions of this pose as awakening the abdominal Agni really do seem to, yeah, right? I mean, the room is hot, but still there's something about being in that shape and doing the breathing that really stimulates this abdominal Agni. But at least we got your calves to shut up.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Cool. So that's something to play with. Yeah.
Can you use that release it in forward then? Or are you talking about something very specific to this pose?
No, I think it works in Janu Shirshasana or, you know, even standing forward folds. It's just a little place to pay attention to, you know. Also, one of the poses that was, to my knowledge, originally categorized or cataloged by Krishnamacharya is Parshvottanasana. Right? I don't think this shows up anywhere prior to 1934, right? And this is a very interesting opportunity to take the sort of head-knee thing literally, where if you tuck in and try to get your forehead and your knee close to each other, and then keep them close as you extend the knee back. That's a very useful and interesting opportunity. Anyone want to try that? That's okay. What's going to be useful for the person doing it, I think, is a more powerful question than how can we get them to do it right? You know, because it goes back to the original comment I made, is there's a difference between describing a shape and describing an experience. And the reason I love to center this whole lesson on flexion around the concept of Paschimottanasana is that the name of the pose describes an experience. It describes a lengthening, an intense lengthening that can occur along the back surface of the body. When you combine that with the sort of anatomical knowledge of what the myofascial reality is in the back of the body, it actually gets you thinking. It gets you thinking differently about what your goals are when you're doing these things. And I find this to be actually a very effective way of releasing the back line of the body. I've had my Paschimottanasana transformed more by practicing this than by practicing Paschimottanasana. And that's another principle that we should know as teachers, that if you have a pose that is sort of your nemesis, and for many people, Paschimottanasana is the nemesis, you don't necessarily get better at that pose by doing a lot of that pose. There's a lot of other things that you might want to explore, a lot of other places where you can learn how to release whatever is in the way of that pose, so that when you come back to it, it feels different. But just doing a lot of that one thing, you're actually more likely to just aggravate whatever resistance you have to that pose in the first place, and irritate your body. You know, and this I find is more functionally useful for people. Number one, especially for overly flexible people, you don't run so much of a risk of them destabilizing the connective tissue holding the joints together, because you're holding weight up on your legs and feet. So there's a certain level of muscular engagement that's required just to be on your feet in this pose. That's going to stabilize your joints to a certain extent. Which, you know, you can see how you were sitting on the floor and kind of like wiggling spaces into some places that may not want to be that open in the long run, right? But standing, that doesn't quite happen because you're engaging to stay in the pose. So it's a little safer for the overly flexible to work on these things from standing, I've found. This was the cure for the yoga butt, by the way, is a series of standing poses that involve this and warriors and whatever that got them off their ass and on their feet. Yeah.
Would you suggest, or would you assist in Paschimottanasana if you can see somebody can go a little?
I do this thing. I do the occipital release.
Do you do that?
That's usually the only assist that I'll give. It's not, I'm not shoving, I'm not forcing, I'm guiding, a little contact here, and I want to make sure that they're not just doing cervical flexion and extension, because that's not the movement.
Or, you know,
it's,
like the teachers do the back behind push, and then you go.
Yeah, no, I don't get into that.
That is a that's deep.
Yeah, I try not to do things to people's bodies that they can't do to themselves in those situations.
That's great.
You know? Because, yeah, you can give them an experience, and it may be helpful, but it's not necessarily empowering in the same way as guiding them into an understanding of their own system and where they can release. And for me, to give somebody the opportunity to experience a release in their nervous system, that will transform how they're experiencing a shape like Paschimottanasana. To me, that's much more powerful, and it's gentle and it's not forced. You know, so it's usually just this little bit of guidance that you saw me do with Chris, right around the occiput, getting them to isolate that movement at the AO joint, the atlanto-occipital joint, and in the vast majority of cases, you just see the whole pose unraveling from a nervous system level, which is pretty cool. So, thank you all very much. Enjoy your primary curve as it's expressed in flexion, and have fun with your stretching the west. And we'll come back next time and start looking at spinal extension. Everyone's favorite, right? Woohoo! Okay, so we'll be going there next. Thanks, guys.